Hello, this is IP Stories by 4IP Counsel, a podcast about innovation and intellectual property. Join us and you'll hear about the journeys through invention, creation, and IP understanding of our guests. I'm Fernanda.
And I'm Marta.
And today we're happy to welcome to our podcast Sonja London. Sonja, thank you so much for coming to our podcast. Before we get into the details of your current position as General Counsel and Licensing Executive at TactoTek and President of LESI, would you tell our listeners about yourself and your career?
So the first thing people ask me usually is that, do you come from Britain? And I can say that despite my name, I'm Finnish. Um, I'm a mother of three. My youngest is 8. I live in Helsinki capital area, and I enjoy fine dining and cooking. And every time I can, I really do like to sing some karaoke.
Me too. Me too, I have to say.
Career wise, I like to think that I actually have several careers. One is the main business career with legal and licensing. One is a board member advisor career with other companies. And then this is my current most favorite one, which is the working for non-profits, which is the LESI part, which is a career of its own. All of these are different approaches to businesses and to making impact and difference in the world.
Congratulations, by the way, Sonja, on being elected the president of LESI. I believe this is a huge achievement, and it must be a very nice feeling.
Thank you. It is indeed a very nice feeling. Um, I will just humbly accept the honor and be thankful for the peers who chose me to lead them. This is 1 year term, so there will be a lot of things to do during the next year, ending in Singapore annual conference in 2025, and then we have the next president following me in the position.
So yeah, indeed, congratulations, Sonia. Really, it must be quite an honor. So I would like to now move on into TactoTek. I would like to know a little bit more about what is it and what do you do there as General Counsel Licensing Executive. Maybe you could give us some examples.
So TactoTek is a technology developer and licensing company. So it's more than 10 years old, developing homegrown technologies for smart surfaces, structural electronics and light solutions, mainly for automotive and aviation industries. And General Counsel does all things legal, meaning heading all the legal um, responsibilities in the company. And then licensing executive means that I do a lot of licensing. uh, Kind of example wise, I close deals, I negotiate them, draft them, but I also plan and strategize on what kind of deals we do, what kind of companies need which solutions, and so on. So it's kind of a combination of very practical negotiations and and very practical legal approach put together.
Okay, I see. And because it's such a wide range of different areas that you have touched there, I would like to know what do you like the most about your job?
I think the variety that no day is the same. Everybody probably says this about their job, but I like that licensing is very business oriented. It's
Mm-hmm.
very international. Um, I work with a lot of nationalities, a lot of different people from different companies every day. I like the technology aspects, and I really do like the people that I'm working with, both internally and externally.
I'm going to go back in time for my next question. What attracted you to licensing?
I have to tell you a secret. When I was applying to law school, I thought that intellectual property rights is probably the most boring subject matter ever. But it turned out to be not that boring after all. I think many legal things are actually quite boring with the legalese and the same language. It's dry and so on. But licensing, that's I would even say that it's a world of business where things they have to be done in a very practical sense. They have practical meaning and implications, so that it's not just paperwork due to paperwork, as sometimes I feel that the legal things may sound like or feel like.
Okay, and given your extensive experience, how is the process of entering an agreement with potential licensees, and what key factors determine the success of these agreements? A lot of things here.
Yes, a lot of things. I don't think there's a right answer to that. Even with the threat of repeating what others must have said before me, I think that understanding both parties' uh, respective business models and their business situations and their needs and their strategies, that's kind of the key to enter into any agreement. It's not a process actually, but it comes in every step of going into negotiation and closing a deal. So understanding is the key point. Then I would think that the actual paperwork needs to be scoped and drafted accordingly. Um,
Hmm.
but there's never, one process only. Each case are individuals, and licensing can be very complex, um, and business situations, value chains, products, markets, they all change. So kind of understanding the other party, where they come from, that's the key. And for that understanding, you build mutual trust, and then the actual negotiating case.
Yes, I can imagine that every case is completely different, no, and every negotiation situation. But if you had to choose one piece of advice to give, for example, to startups regarding IP and licensing, what would it be?
Well, if we start on advice on IP, not necessarily touching even licensing, um, I would say that startup should not create IP just because they think that they need to create IP. So they should think about what are they going to do with that IP. Do they just need a paper, a patent, for example, which is a piece of paper if you don't use it to anything? Do you need it because of your investor said that you need to have a patent? Is that the case, or are you actually going to use it for something? And if you are having plans to use it for something, what is your actual ability to really use it? So are you going to benefit of it at some point, or is it just something that is your vehicle to some other needs or targets that you have? That would be my first thinking on, like, what do you do with the IP? Think about it, because you are creating a cost unless you actually have a need and use for the piece of IP. But then startups and licensing, um, very difficult thing, because licensing requires investments into team and investments as of resources and time and technology. Or even if you're doing brand licensing, you need to have the brand first. And generally, startups would need to create the IP assets first, and then do the licensing for them. If we are talking about technology, it's usually a long way to go. Obviously, if we are talking about software, it might be a shorter way. So for startups, probably easier way to develop easier IP, for example, in the form of software, and then license that. And of course, we all know many successful business models in there. But for technology, it's usually a longer way. So other business models may be easier. And as we can see, other business models are typically more attractive to startups anyway.
Yes, it's funny because you are not the first one that mentions that particularly with patents, it's important to have a strategy beforehand, to not sort of like just go for the patent without thinking first what are you going to do with it. And I think that's a very interesting thought to make sure that you're making the most of that investment, because it can be quite a lot of money. So yeah, I think that's a very interesting idea.
I think so. It's been discussed with actually with many of the startups that I've been working with, is that do you really need this, and why would you need it? And it seems to me even that many of the startups just patent something in order to create an asset, and then the most important use of that asset is to show investors that we have a patent, and then the investors don't understand that maybe this patent is a low quality anyway, maybe it's not even enforceable, maybe it's invalid, but it shows that potentially this startup has the ability to create controlling positions in the market because they have a patent. But it's a long way to actually do that in practice. So until exit of the startup, it is most probably unused.
Hmm.
Yeah, I have to say, I really like that you mentioned that as well, and how important it is to actually think about IP and how to incorporate IP in your business model in a way that is efficient. So thank you for your message. I think it's very useful for startups and SMEs. Now, putting the spotlight somewhere else for a bit, what do you think about the EU policies in IP?
Um, Good question. Difficult one. Um, in general, I would say that regulation is usually bringing out more bureaucracy and lawyers' work than help or efficiency, especially if we are concerning SMEs. This is just a general thing. Europe seems to be approaching markets first by regulation, and thereafter comes the growth and the business. Maybe it's just me, and not pointing fingers, but maybe this is just like a general thinking. But I think that, if we are referring to the EU regulation proposal on SEPs, then I don't think there's much help for any SMEs or much anyone else than maybe big companies who don't want to take licenses to SCPs. So that proposal I don't see particularly helpful. Um, it says that there would be help desk type of services to SMEs. And I think that small companies typically would benefit on services, but these already exist. So I'm not sure if we are in need of extra layer of services that are financed by the taxpayers' money. So that's kind of, I'm a little bit skeptic towards that proposal. But I think that there are other things in European legislation environment that actually do benefit SMEs. One is the unitary patent, because you may have much wider um, um, protection for your patent geographically throughout the whole Europe with a smaller costs than you would have had in the older system. And that's a clear benefit for also benefiting directly SMEs. And I would also mention that we have European-wide rules on trade secrets. Harmonizing the legislation on trade secrets is actually enabling enforcement of them um, in Europe, and I would think that that would also be a beneficial thing for even for SMEs. Enforcement may be difficult, but at least having harmonized legislation in place about trade secrets, that is an important thing because there is so much more to the business than patents only, even for SMEs.
You mentioned some things that could help SMEs. What else do you believe should be done to help these companies?
Um, we would need to have a working market so that SMEs can come to the market easily with their products and services without too much of a difficult legislation that would require very much of investing into processes and procedures that are burdensome to SMEs. Another thing that would be benefiting also SMEs would be relatively fast and quick enforcement of IP because SMEs have lower bargaining power in negotiations. So then, if they are actually owning the IP assets and they would need to enforce, this is very burdensome and takes a long time, especially if you are a technology company. It will be difficult. So, functioning and relatively fast and cheap enforcement system would be good for SMEs.
Yes, this is an issue that we have actually heard about in this podcast, talking with some SMEs, CEOs, and founders. So, yeah, I think it's very interesting that you mentioned that. Now, I would like to move on to something that we found out. You co founded the Women in Licensing Alliance for LESI. Would you tell us more about this project?
It's actually more than a project nowadays. Women in Licensing Alliance, it's a diversity initiative to promote women's expertise and leadership in licensing and also in IP profession worldwide. Um, for me, coming from Finland, with a long career with Nokia, who is role modeling the diversity in workplace, it's definitely a business as usual for me. But in international setting and expert roles, they are very male dominated, especially on the technical fields. But having women as visible role models is really needed in many parts of the world, in many business cultures. Um, so I think there is a room um, for this initiative to promote women in licensing. However, I could continue that diversity in general is more than gender only. It's also age, it's geography, race, religion, sexual orientation, and so on. I think these mentioned ones are probably the most discussed ones in the world. I would say that in global business, diversity promotes business because people are generally most productive when they can work in an environment that accepts them as they are. So diversity is more than gender diversity only, but it's a good step to start with. And this is what the Women in Licensing Alliance is doing, creating networking and visibility opportunities, discussing um, many gender related questions, um, such as the imposter syndrome and so on, and raising visible women leaders in the industry and profession, um, to be the role models for others.
I really like that project. I think it's great. Well, or that initiative that now, as you mentioned, is bigger than just a project. I would like to know if you have noticed any difference in the last few years regarding diversity in this industry, in licensing and in leadership.
Um, I think that LESI reflects quite well the industry and also service providers industry. in the world of IP currently. And we have a long history on quite balanced uh, gender diversity. Uh, as a global organization, we also are promoting heavily all parts of the world to take part in the activities. We have many rotational roles, like president also comes from at the each president at their time comes from different parts of the world and so on, giving visibility to countries, to regions, and even to continents. So geographically and gender wise, we are quite balanced. But I think that there is, of course, room. Always there is room for improvement, and I think that in many parts of the world, um, those people who we see taking part in non-profit associations may be quite senior, for example, partners in the law firm, so that then there's not that much of an age diversity, which we would heavily promote, that also younger professionals would be able to take part and grow their networks and learn. So there are other aspects to that. I think there is room for improvement in many sectors.
Hmm.
Now, getting a little bit more personal, I would say, what is the most difficult or challenging situation you've had to face during your career?
Maybe there's a story to that too. I was once in a very tough negotiation where there was shouting, almost spitting, disrespectful behavior towards me, towards my team. Um, in my culture, that kind of behavior, especially in business situations or negotiations, is not normal. So that if someone loses their temper, they lose the game. Uh, and that kind of situation needed to be tuned down, which I did in a firm but respectful way. And after the situation went away and we were going forward with my team, my colleague said that, oh my, this must have been the most difficult situation you ever had. And I said that, okay, of course it was challenging, but it is still something that can be handled. I think that what is much more difficult to handle are those things that every organization sometimes has, internal conflicts or conflicting targets in different units, or bad leadership or management that cannot make decisions or something like that. These are battles that you can't win, or that are very very hard to resolve. But these kind of challenging situations um, usually are resolvable things when you are on the spot. They just feel bad for some time, but then you move on and can still get to your targets of business. So I don't know. Maybe that's what I have to say about the most challenging situation. There are so many different kinds of.
I think this was a great example, and it really tells to our listeners how challenging negotiation is, and uh, getting into licensing agreements is really I think an art, and I highly admired you for that. So congrats on getting that done and putting that to the past, I think. Now, looking back from all your achievements, to put this in a more positive light, what are you most proud of?
You are asking a Finn. I can't say anything. We don't brag about anything in Finland. But I have a story. Um, some years ago, when I was doing my MBA, we had a task to write an obituary for yourself, like a writing of
Okay.
after you're gone from this world. What would the others write down? What will you be remembered for? And like people were crying when they were doing this thing, of course, but like, you know how obituaries are. What has this person achieved? and I had pretty much nothing else to say. That I was just thinking that if I could be remembered as being a good colleague, a good boss, a good friend, a good wife, and a good mother, what more can I achieve in this life? I think that if I could check all of these boxes afterwards, then probably I would be most proud of myself doing that.
Okay, I think that was like the best answer ever.
well, this is a true story because I can't brag. There's nothing I can say about what I have achieved in my life.
Okay, no, I think that was perfect. That was lovely. And well, I would like to know, as you have 1 year ahead as president of LESI, as we mentioned before, could you tell us what's on your plans for the future of the organization?
So first of all, I think that the next year, until end of April 2025, will pretty much consume all of my time. So no free time problems. I probably can't even think about the time after that. Is there life after the term as president? Remains to be seen. Um, but I think that next year definitely will be a lot of work around communicating on what are we doing in LESI, raising the visibility of the organization. So if you listeners don't see anything about LESI next year, then I have miserably failed in my my task. So I hope that everybody will be following our doings in LinkedIn and see
Mhm,
the great things that we are doing in our networks. So that's one plan. The
mhm.
other plan is to engage and activate our members, our committees, um, our local associations with the global ones, engage and activate the industry to work with us in partnerships and to enable our advocacy efforts and so on. So there will be a lot of action um, by working together with our stakeholders. We do work together, for example, with the World Intellectual Property Organization. We work on local level in each of the countries, national chapters, and also like a pan-Asian, pan-European, pan-American level. So there will be conferences, networking, advocacy, industry discussions, learnings, trainings, and sharing a lot of that. And then I believe that all of this activity together will then create value for our stakeholders, our members, our partners, and so on. Hopefully, we will have a good impact to society with the IP industry that we are working with.
And for IP will be sharing everything that we see in our LinkedIn. So we will make sure that at least from our side, you get as much impact as possible.
Well, I see for IP Council, for example, we have been working together with LESI for some time, and webinars, for example, is one way of training and learning that everybody should have access to quite easily. So not everybody can travel to conferences all the time, but we make things accessible for members and for larger audience. Actually, um, there is something that I'd like to say that I feel really passionate about. And this is that about 20 years ago, before the time of social media, you needed to be part and member of these kind of associations to get access to knowledge and to get networked because knowledge was not available and networks were not available unless you were members. And now, in the time of social media, um, all the information is there, but it has become noise. And all the people are in LinkedIn and everywhere, and you can reach out, but these connections are not meaningful. So what we are trying to do is to create and sort out and share the content that is actually relevant to people and make meaningful connections between people possible, and kind of enable networking that actually is meaningful. And that's what we do. And I believe that there is still, even with the era of social media and AI, there is room for meaningful human interaction between professionals.
Well, yes, of course. We need them. Otherwise, we would all go crazy. So, yes, definitely. And I agree with you that sometimes it's a bit too much, even the amount of information that we can find. So, it's good to have professionals curating a little bit the content, and making sure that the most relevant information is the one that reaches most of the people.
Exactly.
So we're approaching the end, unfortunately, and I would like to ask you and give you the stage to tell our listeners, why should companies become a member of LESI?
Uh, People can be members of LESI individually, and then we have company membership, or also you can be part of LESI as a global corporate member. And why would you do this? Uh, to sort out the relevant information from the noise, and to build the meaningful connections that actually benefit you personally, give you the learnings, and provide you with the business that you are trying to achieve. So that's what I think would be the most important giveaways, that you will make the connections that are meaningful, and you get the meaningful information, learning, and sharing.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Sonia, for spending this time with us. It's been a pleasure to have this chat with you, and we have learned a lot. So, we will make sure to share all the links so that people can find out more. And yeah, thanks again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was an honor.
Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Thank you for listening to IP Stories by 4IP Council. Visit our website on 4ipcouncil.eu to find out more, and check out the links mentioned during this episode. If you liked it, remember to share and subscribe.